there shall be equality of treatment and opportunities for all persons in the armed services without regard to race, creed, or color, or national origin.
Truman's order began the integration of the armed forces. It was the first step toward the civil rights revolution that would sweep America in the decades to follow.
There's always such a heaviness here. Each of these carvings was a person, and they had a family. You know, it's yeah, I had a lot of friends that died in Afghanistan, and I had a lot more that died once we got back. And you carry that survivor's guilt with you. Sorry for your loss.
Paper up there says 4E 38 pound.
Let's do this another way.
All right, boss. See, I don't have one of those.
Yeah, Ronald Edward Junkie.
Yeah,
Okay. 66, January 8th,
yeah,
Marine Corps.
yeah. PSC.
Okay. That's him. There you go. Ronald E. Junkie.
That's it. Oh, yeah.
Right there. There you go.
Yep, we're doing it.
You're doing it.
With the R in
There you go. What happened?
He got stepped on what they call a landmine now.
I was in Afghanistan in 2011.
Now, you guys had it just as screwed up as...
I don't know that we had it as bad as you guys.
We didn't know what we were getting into over there.
One of my best friends, we lost him in a helicopter accident.
That's what I flew.
Yeah.
Air crewman.
Air crewman.
Waist gunner.
Yeah. There you go.
Here's your pencil. One more time.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure. Thank you for everything you did.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks.
I knew it took a corpsman to help me out.
I don't believe there are any Sikh names that are on this wall, but Sikhs were there. Sikhs have served honorably in every major conflict. And it was Guru Gobind Singh who, about 300 years ago, codified our turban as a part of our religious uniform. Sikhs wear 5 articles of faith that define our identity, commonly known as the 5 Ks. Ks is hair, unshorn hair. It is considered the natural state of man. The kirpan, it's a sword or a dagger. Another one is ganga, which is a small comb that we wear in our hair. Represents cleanliness. Make sure you maintain yourself and your body. There we go. There you go. Something Chinar learned after marrying me. How to do a puni. Basically prepares the turban for being tied. The fourth is the kachera, which it sounds a little silly, but it's boxer shorts. Kara is typically a steel or iron bracelet. It's worn on your dominant hand. So it represents unity, the circle of life, and it also reminds us to do good things. It's not like a baseball cap you can just put on and take off. You know, this is a part of our body and our soul.
Black soldiers had served in the American Army in every war since the Revolution. But in 1946, they were completely segregated, except in emergencies. And most whites wanted to keep it that way. General Eisenhower, Army Chief of Staff, spoke for most of his colleagues when he testified that segregation in the Army should be maintained.
I think if you talk to any senior leader in the military, there will certainly be some who will say, women don't belong in combat arms. We shouldn't have someone with a turban and a beard. Some might even say blacks are in an inferior culture. But I would say that is really a small minority. Unfortunately, they sometimes get the biggest microphone. In terms of the Army using the excuse of, hey, we don't want to disrupt esprit de corps, the spirit of the group, if you look at the history and the results, every time that has been offered as an excuse, exactly the opposite has happened.
I don't cook anything.
I gave him water to boil one day, and that got burned. So you can imagine if a guy can burn water.
Should I throw these out too?
Oh, I can do this. When I joined the Army, I didn't ask for permission. I've always been a firm believer that if you're going to do something good, that you do something that you believe in, you don't ask permission for that. My dad was proud, and my mom's like, what are you doing? You know, and she was not happy. I never knew this was. And my wife was, and my girlfriend at the time, she was happy and scared.
When we were dating, I remember my friends used to come and we used to go to play pool. And they would say, you're dating a ZZ Top singer. Nobody knew what Sikhism was because, you know, it was a foreign concept. I know we had a serious conversation and he said, Chinar, if you ever think that you'll get anything other than what you see, then you have to think. I will never cut my hair and I will never trim my beard. I loved him for who he was. I didn't expect him to change anything.
As an Indian kid growing up in the United States, you have a choice of being a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. And I've always had this fascination with medicine. My great-grandfather served in the Royal British Army. My grandfather served in the Indian Air Force, as did my father. And then when it came time for me to join, the recruiter came to medical school and said, hey, would you like to join? And I said, of course I'd love to join. I come from 4 generations of military service.
Yes. Oh, every day is a celebration. Thank you.
Have some cake before you go. The recruiter, they said, are you sure you want to join the military? because they're going to take their pound and a half of flesh. I want to serve. I want to do this for my country. I want to do it for my family. But I serve like this, with turban and beard. And so he said, yeah. There's lots of Sikhs that are serving. Your turban and beard is not a problem. He's like, but there's going to be a price to pay. I didn't understand it at the time. So, but it's true. There's a price to pay. So in comparison to my other friends that have grown up in India, I feel like we're much stronger and much more grounded in why we are Sikh and what makes us Sikh. You're not just born into the religion, you have to practice it.
I knew my children were going to be in the same religion. So I knew what he was doing was the right path forward, not just for us, but for the next generation. I was going to be with him through thick or through thin.
I identify very strongly with the history and with the social justice aspect of my faith. But I don't feel like I'm really all that religious. That was pretty good. I got a call from a chaplain at the Pentagon. Their job is to make sure that we have a sincerely held belief, religious belief. The chaplain asked me, well, we have safety concerns. Can you wear a helmet? And can you wear a gas mask? And I said, look, I've had no problems wearing the helmet or the gas mask. I can get a good seal. I can prove it to you. His last question was, well, what about esprit de corps? And esprit de corps is this concept of, how are you going to interact with your fellow soldiers? Are they going to accept you? Are you going to be a part of the unit? I said, well, sir, with all due respect, weren't those the same arguments you used to keep women and blacks out of the military? What if the mission demanded that you remove your turban and cut your hair? What if that was part of the mission? Which I thought was a strange question, but I humored him. I'm happy to give my arm or my leg. I'm happy to bleed for my country. I'm happy to die for my nation in service. But I can't give you that which does not belong to me. I'm not the first Sikh in the military. I mean, Bhagat Singh Thind and many more before him served in the early 1900s. In fact, we have some data that suggests that Sikhs actually served in the 1800s. Sikhs have served in World Wars I and II, in Vietnam and Korea. Over 80,000 Sikh soldiers died in the trenches of World Wars I and II with their turbans and beards. The army allowed us to serve, and then in the 80s, they got rid of us. Or at least they got rid of the turbans and beards and hijabs and other articles of faith from all religions. 8 years while I completed medical school and residency, really had no issue. I sort of flew under the radar. I guess it was the last year of my residency training, and I called my chain of command and I said, hey, haven't had any issue so far, but I want you to know that I'm gonna be going on active duty next year. You guys are okay with the turban and beard still. Like a month later, I got a very different phone call. They said, no, actually, we're not cool with this. And you're gonna need to remove your turban, cut your hair, shave your beard, and then we will apply for your religious accommodation. Imagine you're starting a job interview today, and you're continuing to interview for that job for the next year and a half. Who does that?
And then once when they said no, you have to cut your hair, that's when it became a true fight.
He was coming into the service to become a physician, but in order to do that, you first go through basic training. And coming in as a Sikh, he wanted to keep his religious accommodations. And up to that point, there was a straight rule across the board. Basic trainees get haircuts, they shave every day. There are Jewish soldiers who want to wear yarmulkes, Muslim soldiers that want different periods for prayer, and that has to be limited, because if you're allowing different groups of people to do different things, it affects the training. We want soldiers to keep their individual identity. We also want them to feel like they are becoming part of a team. It's difficult to grant individual exceptions, because what you would then see is everybody wanting an exception for something. So I received this request on my desk. My staff brought it to me and said, hey, we've got this guy who wants religious accommodations to come into the service. My initial reaction is, no way. I had a scheduled trip to Texas. We had lunch together in one of the dining facilities. He explained to me what he had to do with his hair to put it under the turban every day. He said, if I have to wake up an hour before everyone else does, I'll do it. Everyone else is getting up at 5:30, so you're telling me you're willing to get up at 4:30 just to do your hair? Yes, sir, I am. And truthfully, a part of me walked away from the conversation saying, yeah, the first week of basic training when he's getting up every day at 4:30, he isn't gonna make it. And it turned out, he was excelling in every aspect of the training. So I had the real tough choice of taking his request for religious accommodation and forwarding it up to the Department of the Army, saying, I really think we should allow this.
Hey there, Eric. How you doing? How you been?
Well, thanks. Good to see you.
Not too long.
Too long.
Come on in.
Yeah.
Kalsi.
Thank you. You have a beautiful home.
Thanks. It is a little bit different than the one you saw last time.
I think last time we talked, we were still sort of wrangling about Sikhs joining the army. I remember you saying at the time, this was the most hot button issue that you had come across during your time there. Is that you still feel that to be true?
For me at the time, working through religious accommodation for Sikhs was more emotional than women in combat, transgender service, the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. You think of the word uniform. which is uniformity, was the most visible change to someone in what you would imagine as a uniform, no matter what the service was. This was a complicated issue with lots of supporters, lots of doubters. For those opposed to it, it was just a bridge too far for them to imagine a soldier, sailor, airman, marine, Coast Guardsman, guardian, whatever, looking so different from the person to the left or the right. The acting general counsel of the Army came to me and said, we have this case that we're fighting on religious accommodation, and we lose every single time. In approaching it with the senior uniform leadership, I'm like, you can be for it, you can be against it, but here's the risk we run. Do you want to figure out how to do this? Or do you want some judge who doesn't know anything about the Army to tell us how to do it?
So it took my accommodation, it was the first of its kind in over a generation, over a year and a half. So in late 2009, I became the first Sikh, I became the first soldier in a generation to get that type of religious accommodation. In the final days of the Obama administration, Secretary of the Army, Eric Fanning at the time, got our policy changed so that Sikhs, Muslims, Rastafarians, Wiccans, all these religious minorities could now practice their faith freely.
When I was at West Point last year and saw a Sikh in formation with the beard, with a fixed turban that was different, certainly different headgear than all the rest of the cadets were wearing, but it told me that what Kamal did in 2009, 2010, is seeing effects on a larger scale within the Army. Now, is it seeing the same effects in the other services? If you talk to him, he says no, it's not happening fast enough. And what I would say to that is, yeah, but it's happening.
Enemy personal radar in the air.
Recruiter's job is to bring you in. From there, they're going to send you to MEPS, and MEPS has the final say-so whether you can join or not. They did ask me about like the beard and turban. They're like, oh, would you be willing to shave it? I said, no, I wouldn't. So we sent up our accommodation request to the chain of command. And I waited for about a month and a half. I finally got my accommodation letter. So basically it's saying you've joined the Marine Corps. And it's Section C, it says, while the Marine Corps supports your ability to practice and observe the tenets of your faith, it may impose restrictions. If any of those restrictions are against government interest, you may have to remove your articles of faith, you shave your beard, turban, or anything like that. What's the point of having an accommodation that it doesn't accommodate anything?
Spirit, how are you? Anand, nice to meet you in person.
You too.
All right. You should be able to practice your faith as a Sikh and serve our country. And that's why we're doing this. From a legal standpoint, is the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And it's a law that courts have determined is applicable to the armed forces, right? Your accommodation would be among the first in the U.S. Marine Corps for an observant Sikh. And that is historic, but that comes with great responsibility. You know, given the gravity of the situation, that we have tried to find the path of least resistance. And I know, Kamal, you say this very often when you're speaking to the media. You know, it took the major civil rights organization, international law firm, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars of pro bono legal services across those organizations to get your accommodation and protect your accommodation. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that hard.
You being the first, there are going to be many obstacles that are going to be put in your way. And we do want you to make sure that you understand that there are personal potential repercussions that you will have to face. You are the plaintiff. Your name is going to be on the lawsuit against the United States Marine Corps. And are you prepared for that?
Yes.
There were a lot of comments on all the articles that had come out. You know, some of these comments were very hateful and hurtful. I remember one comment said, if I ever saw him during combat, I would shoot him. Just disgusting and hateful stuff.
The war was on. I was hoping they would take a little more time to give him the accommodation. They needed doctors, so it came through. We were given 4 weeks notice, and we all moved to Louisiana. I think it was Louisiana Foot Polk. It's like there's nothing there except for this military base and one big Walmart. So our outings were just going into the Walmart and walking around. We didn't know what to expect, and I had 2 little kids. The risk was really high. So here he's trying to prove something, but it could disrupt our lives. 8 months, the tour seemed like a lifetime. My anxiety was just off the chart.
So in 2011, I deployed to Afghanistan in Helmand Province. Helmand Province at the time was one of the bloodiest zones of activity. We were losing lots of soldiers, unfortunately, to ID blasts, to gunshot wounds. They were all flown in to our expeditionary ER. You know, for the next 7 months, we took care of hundreds, if not thousands, of combat casualties and local nationals.
He does deal with PTSD. He doesn't like to talk about it. There are lots of memories he likes to block it.
So they didn't give me any special treatment. You know, we did combat showers, meaning, you know, everybody gets, 2 minutes in the shower. You have to be on time. I got a lot of looks from the other soldiers that were at Camp Dwyer at the time. There were lots of interesting experiences like that. I was awarded a Bronze Star. We took care of hundreds of combat casualties, resuscitated back patients that were technically dead on arrival. One of the young Marines that I met while I was there, his name's Gurpreet Singh. He's a Sikh, proud Sikh, doesn't keep his turban. One day he was outside of the wire, and he took a round to the chest. Our doctors took care of him, he was fine, and then I never saw him again. I actually ran into his sister in California and his mom and dad. And just by coincidence, she told me that she has a brother that deployed to Afghanistan and he died. And I said, well, what was his name? She said, Gurpreet Singh. We're very proud of Gurpreet. We're very proud of his family that keeps his memory.
Now we have my son over here. It's a great honor to a Sikh community. They put a khanda, like a Sikh envelope, on the headstone.
Those kind of welcoming is an indicator that things are changing.
Fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. They're going in! Holy fuck! They fucking breached the fucking entrance! Oh, fuck! See how fast the cops turn around once they fucking saw the numbers go.
The institution that we're sworn to protect and defend, that was under attack. It made me sick. Al-Qaeda, Taliban, all these extremist elements, we know they hate us. But our own people attacking the Capitol, I never expected that. Those halls that I've walked down, I don't know how many countless times, meeting with congressmen and senators and their staffers. It made me angry. Most striking to me was that there were a number of veterans and currently serving military that were also part of the mob. Being minorities, we knew and felt this for years, that there were extremist elements in the military on active duty. It's just a horrible sense of betrayal. I think there's no better way to address extremist elements than to open the doors to diversity and inclusion.
These burn pits that incinerate waste, the waste of war, medical and hazardous material, jet fuel, and so much more. And they come home, many of the world's fittest and best trained warriors in the world, never the same. Headaches, numbness, dizziness. A cancer that would put them in a flag-draped coffin. I know.
This was from Trauma Thursdays.
Trauma Thursdays.
Trauma Thursdays.
Yeah. We got a lot of good stuff done.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
We got a lot of good stuff done. When you get back, you don't always know what to do.
I mean, I know you battle nightmares.
Yeah.
I mean, I battle nightmares.
So you remember how they had Christmas lights up in the ER? So those Christmas lights, they ran every time the CAT scanner ran. Mm-hmm. And the reason they did that, I found this out later, is that they had installed the CAT scan machines like backwards. So every time they ran the CAT scanners, they were showering us with radiation. And that happened for 7 months. So I think that's what led to my cancer. I mean, we had burn pits there too.
Throughout most of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the military used so-called burn pits to dispose of virtually all waste.
That is what we live next to. Luckily, the wind's not blowing our way today.
I'm on chemo now. I'm gonna lose my hair that I fought so hard for. We all pay a price.
A bone marrow biopsy on you.
You sent my husband there for a mission.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Not fun, but exciting.
Exactly.
But instead, he came back with cancer. I thought just deployment was disrupting our life. This has completely changed the landscape for us.
Let's hook you up here.
And watching them put that thing in there, I can't stay in the room.
1, 2, 3, poke.
I can't see him hurt. I just can't. He's my best friend. Apart from him being the father of my children, there's a friendship, there's a bond.
Hey.
How far have you been?
I don't know, maybe another 30, 40 minutes.
Are you tired?
Not yet.
11 years ago, I fought with the political system to allow one guy in. I'll fight the immune system to keep him where he needs to be.
If I can affect the military, it'll cause a ripple effect for generations to come. I want to be able to see that policy change. You know, that means my kids won't have to make the same fights. I don't know how much time I have. So it's important to me that I see this through.
They are
Thank you.